Take questions from reporters as well. One presumes
Bonsoir,
after some statements.
mesdames et
We'll listen to them.
Je suis très heureux d'accueillir ce soir la Première ministre. Le vent
this evening Prime
n'emporte que
Minister
les
May.
feuilles, mais pas le reste.
The wind is only taking papers away, but
Elle n'aura
nothing
pas raison
else.
de nous. Je suis très heureux donc d'accueillir
So I'm
Theresa
extremely
May pour
pleased to
un
be
dîner de travail que nous avons eu
receiving
avec
Prime Minister May.
nos
We just
équipes et
had a working dinner
ministres
together with
de
our
l'Intérieur.
staff and our
Quelques jours
ministers of
simplement,
Home Affairs.
après les élections
Only a
britanniques.
few days after the British elections, and I'm extremely grateful to Mrs. May. Thank you very much for so quickly accepting my invitation to come to Paris, not only for this working dinner, but for the football match between our two countries in a few moments.
Le lien qui unit
Your visit
la solidarité,
embodies the strong bond between our two countries, solidarity and efficiency, friendship and working together, remembrance as well as projecting ourselves into the future. And I'm saying it just a few days after the terror attacks against Manchester and London. We talked to one another in the following hours, and I had a chance to
combien nous avons été avec
take the floor at the time, but let me tell you one more time how
parce que ce
sad we were,
des attaques contre la jeunesse,
how impacted we've been as well, because each time it is freedom, democracy and our youth which are attacked, and also because a number of victims,
qui sont le témoignage
there were a number of victims, and they are the embodiment of this strong bond between our two countries. The thousands
en Grande-Bretagne.
of French people living in the United Kingdom and thousands of British people living in France. So this evening we talked about our common challenges, and first and foremost of our
Coopération qui nous lie est aujourd'hui exemplaire.
cooperation in counter-terrorism. It is outstanding when it comes to intelligence sharing and the work between our services. And as a matter of fact, after these two attacks, this was the case. And please allow me to pay tribute to our security forces, to our intelligence services. They're working together on a daily basis for our security, and we owe them
Mais
a
nous avons
lot.
décidé ensemble d'aller plus loin.
But we've decided together to do more together, and for a number of days already we've been working on a very concrete action plan that was put together by our teams and will make it public tonight. This concrete action plan will be implemented by all services. The first purpose is to strengthen the commitments and the obligations of internet operators in order to delete any content promoting hatred and terrorism by any way. Some commitments have been made so far, but they are not sufficient. And Prime Minister May in Taormina was reminding us a couple of weeks ago that it is within the first 2 hours that 50% of the potential terrorists or people who can be influenced or receive the information, and that
Ensuite, améliorer les moyens d'accès au contenu crypté.
actions are undertaken in 48 hours. And then the aim is to get access, better access to encrypted content so that these internet tools are not unlimited tools for terrorists. And then we want to improve international cooperation, including with the United States, in order to improve access to digital content and digital evidence in our investigations by our police services and justice services, no matter where the data is localized. This is absolutely necessary in order to prevent as much as we can terrorist propaganda as well as terrorist attacks, and also in order to bring to justice those involved in these terror attacks or attempts. Of course, beyond that common goal, we want to involve all of the G7 members, and a number of meetings will be held, including by our interior ministers. We want to do more, in particular with the United States. President Trump made some strong statements, including in Taormina, and we very much want to act together. And of course, this initiative is open to any of our partners in the European Union, and I have in mind in particular Germany, which constantly expressed its willingness to work in close cooperation with us on this matter. So the action plan, of course, is intended to be spread, but as from today, the purpose is to take some concrete actions and to get some concrete results anytime soon. This major challenge, the fight against terrorism, should not lead us to forget the other challenges. We therefore talked about the economy, migrations, as well as defense. We have a defense agenda and will continue to work actively on it. And by the end of the year, we will hold another defense summit in the United Kingdom. Lastly, the negotiation on the Brexit continues, and we'll leave it to Prime Minister May to say a few words about it. But as far as I'm concerned, I want a very clear negotiation, and would like the negotiation and then the discussions on the future relationship with the United Kingdom to be launched as soon as possible and take place as quickly as possible. This is what I meant to tell you. Of course, we talked about our willingness to work together in the digital sector in the future, in defending our values all around the world. And lastly, regarding climate change, our countries always stood together. Please allow me to thank Theresa May for coming so quickly after the elections in her country, and I'm looking forward to working together with you on all of these topics. We have so much to do together. In a couple of minutes, our teams will be playing football against one another, and of course there needs to be a winner, but even though we may not agree, it will be such a small disagreement that we will not even show it. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. And as you have said, the United Kingdom and France work side by side together in so many different areas, and that ranges from our bilateral trading relationship worth £69 billion to our tourist industries, where British and French people are intrinsically linked, forming the single largest groups of visitors to each other's countries. But nowhere is our cooperation closer than in the area of defence and security, with British and French fighter pilots flying alongside one another and in each other's planes over Syria and Iraq to strike Daesh at its heart, or our troops deployed together in Estonia to provide reassurance to our eastern allies in the face of Russian aggression. Just this month, cooperation between our two countries has led to the seizure of £65 million worth of drugs in the Indian Ocean, with UK and French naval officers working together on HMS Monmouth to intercept an illegal haul. And this is our close and deep relationship in action. As you've said, our discussions today have focused on the greatest security challenge our two countries face, tackling terrorism and rooting out the extremism that fuels it. Both our countries have, sadly, experienced the horrors of terrorism all too recently. I offer our heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of the 3 innocent French victims killed in the terrible attack in London last week. It shows so painfully how these attacks are not attacks on one place, but on us all. And a British man, Nick Alexander, of course, also tragically died in the Bataclan attack in Paris in November 2015. And I know you stand with us against this evil. And tonight, as you've just heard, President Macron and I will join the England and French football teams and the fans at the Stade de France to honour the victims of the London Bridge attack. In the wake of the November 2015 Paris attacks, the England and French teams paid tribute at Wembley Stadium to all those who lost their lives. And our visit to the Stade de France tonight will be a similar show of solidarity against terrorism and extremism. The counter-terrorism cooperation between our intelligence agencies is already strong, but President Macron and I agree that more should be done to tackle the terrorist threat online. As I've said before, in the UK we are already working with social media companies to halt the spread of extremist material and poisonous propaganda that is warping young minds. But we know they need to do more. And today we can announce that the UK and France will work together to encourage corporations to do more and abide by their social responsibility to step up their efforts to remove harmful content from their networks. We're launching a joint UK-French campaign to ensure that the internet cannot be used as a safe space for terrorists and criminals, and that it cannot be used to host the radicalising material that leads to so much harm. We will lead joint work with the tech companies on this vital agenda, including working with them to develop tools to identify and remove harmful material automatically. We will press them to urgently establish the industry-led forum we agreed at the G7 summit last month to develop shared technical and policy solutions to tackle terrorist content on the internet. Crucially, our campaign will also include exploring creating a legal liability for tech companies if they fail to take the necessary action to remove unacceptable content. The Home Secretary and the French Interior Minister will meet in the coming days to drive forward this important work, and we are united in our total condemnation of terrorism and our commitment to stamp out this evil. Finally, on Brexit, we have been very clear that we want to maintain a close relationship and a close partnership with the EU and individual member states into the future, including in the areas we've discussed this evening. And I confirmed to President Macron that the timetable for the Brexit negotiation remains on course and will begin next week. So thank you, Emmanuel, for our very constructive discussions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michel Rose de Reuters. Monsieur le Président, Madame la Première ministre, vous aviez dit, Monsieur le Président, lors de votre visite,
on the occasion of your visit to Downing Street in February, you said an exit is an exit. Do you think today that this exit will be any softer? Do you think that the outcome of the elections in the UK mean it's going to be a soft rather than a hard Brexit? I believe that Prime Minister May is in a better position to comment and to answer this question in detail, but let me tell you what my own position is. First of all, France's willingness is that the negotiations start as quickly as possible. The second is that these negotiations shall be led by the European Union in a coordinated manner and not country by country. The decision made is the right one in order to preserve the interests of the European Union in the short, the mid and the long term. Lastly, my wish is that we do not spend all of our energy to talk about the technicalities of the Brexit, but that we continue within the EU and the Eurozone to continue to talk about the future programs that we need in order to do more. And then between our two countries, we continue to work together on a bilateral agenda as shown today, where we have so many common challenges. Prime Minister now has the floor in order to talk about the consequences of the vote in the United Kingdom.
Well, thank you very much. I think there is a unity of purpose among people in the United Kingdom. It's a unity of purpose, having voted to leave the EU, that their government gets on with that and makes a success of it. And we are committed to developing a deep and special partnership with the EU. We want the EU to continue to remain strong, and we want to continue to cooperate. We want to develop that deep and special partnership on matters relating to trade. But as we've heard, the issues we discussed tonight on security are also issues on which it's important for us to cooperate in the future. And I believe that with the good process that has been set out by the EU for those negotiations, which start, as I have said, next week, and with the willingness and intent on both sides to build that future partnership, then we will see an arrangement for Brexit that will be in the interests not just of the United Kingdom, but of the remaining 27 member states of the European Union. Matt.
Matt Fry, Channel 4 News. Prime Minister, you talk about a unity of purpose, but the former Prime Minister, your former party leader, John Major, has effectively accused you today of endangering peace in Northern Ireland by clinging to power with a coalition deal with the DUP. What is your response to that? And if I may, Monsieur le Président, you said an exit is an exit, but the German finance minister, Wolfgang Schäuble, said today that if Britain changed its mind for some reason, the door would be open to remain in the EU. Do you agree with him?
Shall I take the first? On the first point that you raised, Matt, we as a government remain absolutely steadfast in our commitment to the Belfast Agreement and the subsequent agreements, and we continue to work with all the parties in Northern Ireland and with the Government of the Republic of Ireland in ensuring that we can continue to put in place those measures necessary to fulfil those agreements. As you'll be aware, there are discussions now continuing to take place on the formation of the Northern Ireland Executive, and our intent on enabling the parties to work together to ensure we can see that executive being reformed and a devolved administration continuing in Northern Ireland is absolute. What we're doing in relation to the talks that we're holding, the productive talks we're holding with the Democratic Unionist Party, is ensuring that it is possible to, with their support, give the stability to the UK government that I think is necessary at this time. We stand at a critical time with those Brexit negotiations starting only next week. I think that stability is important. We have worked as a party with the DUP before, and those are productive talks. The intent is to ensure that we have the stability of government in the national interest.
Pour ce qui est de votre question, monsieur, je peux parler en anglais, je l'ai fait quelques fois.
Yes, I can speak
Dans une conférence de
English.
presse,
I did so at press conferences, but I think I should continue to speak French, otherwise there will be some controversy, and of course I support the French language. So, in French, of course, the door remains open, always open, until the Brexit negotiations come to an end. That being said, a sovereign decision was taken by the British people, that is to come out of the European Union, and I very much respect the decisions taken by the peoples, be it by the French people or by the British people. As a matter of fact, in this case, it's not for me to say whether or not this decision should be questioned. A decision to leave the European Union, but until the negotiations come to an end, of course, there is always the possibility to reopen the door. But let us be clear and organised, and once the negotiations have started, we should be well aware that it will be more and more difficult to move backward. Thank you. I think there's one thing we do not have control over, that's the start of the match, so we therefore have to leave in order to go to the Stade de France. Thank you.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.